Hello, Bleacher Report listeners. My name is James Hill, and welcome back to yet another live stream here on the Bleacher Report app. We are actually coming off of a very strong win by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their Week 10 matchup versus the Tennessee Titans. And in this live stream / video today, we are going to be talking about why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a dark horse in the NFC playoff race. And there's a lot of reasons why, right? Firstly, you talk about the wild card race, then you also got to talk about mainly the divisional race for the NFC South. So there's going to be a lot of things to cover in this live stream today. Very happy to have everybody here to join in the conversation. Again, my name is James Hill. I run the YouTube channel MrBucsNation, and yeah, talking about all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The first thing I feel like that is so important to highlight is what the last week's slate of games, I guess I should say, meant for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers overall. And it all starts firstly with this, that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won versus the Tennessee Titans. That was obviously a good thing. It helps whenever you win some football games and improve your own record. As you guys can see right here, the Tennessee Titans moved on to fell to a 3-6 record. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers moved up to a 4-5 record. That's good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all things considered. It obviously is a good thing whenever you get some wins. However, after that, you then had a situation that was the first helpful thing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was that the New Orleans Saints lost to the Minnesota Vikings. It was a tough back and forth type of game. The Saints definitely tried to give it a run in the end, where they tried to get in, try to have some type of come from behind win. Didn't happen. The Vikings move up to 6-4. The Saints fell to 5-5. Why is this important? Because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have already defeated the New Orleans Saints in this season. So that definitely helps with tiebreakers, helps with an effort to win the division for the Bucs. Then the second thing that helped out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was that the Atlanta Falcons also lost in their Week 10 matchup versus the Arizona Cardinals. Again, very strong back and forth game. It was Kyler Murray's first game back from injury. He came in, he won, and the Falcons lost. Now, as it stands right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are technically above the Falcons because the Falcons have more losses than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, they do win any tiebreakers, head-to-heads and whatnot. If the Buccaneers lose this upcoming week, as the Saints and the Falcons both have bye weeks right now, then the Bucs would drop back down to third. However, if they win versus the San Francisco 49ers, then the Buccaneers will actually be first place in the NFC South. So kind of some interesting dynamics there, interesting situations. And I actually do want to take a look at an article that was written here on Bleacher Report. It goes over the entire 2023 playoff picture. It was written by Joe Tanzi over here on BleacherReport.com. He does an excellent job. It is NFL playoff picture 2023, wild card standings, and Week 11 Super Bowl odds, right? Right now, as it stands, we have a lot of different people talking in the chat here. Frankie says, go Bucs. We have soccer fans saying Bucs may squeeze into the playoffs. However, they are no contender. We Matter says respectfully, no. We'll see, ultimately, right? A lot of different things are possibly coming together on the offensive side of things and hopefully on the defensive side of things as well regarding this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. So it is definitely going to, in my opinion, be a wait and see type of scenario. But let's go ahead, dive right into what is going on here in this article from Joe Tanzi about the Super Bowl odds and everything along those lines. So let's go ahead and start off with the Super Bowl odds down here. This is via DraftKings Sportsbooks, and San Francisco 49ers are number one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers play the San Francisco 49ers next week, by the way. So that should be a, let's just say, an interesting matchup for the Tampa Bay Bucs, all things considered. They are playing the odds-on favorite to be in the Super Bowl right now for the NFC. And if they win that game, they're number one in the NFC South. If they lose, they would drop to third instead of second. So it's a tough game, but we can dive into that somewhere later on down the line. That's obviously a tough matchup. You look all the way down here, though, you have Tampa Bay at plus 15,000 is their odds to be in the Super Bowl. Now, they're not the worst. right? They're not the worst. They're certainly not the best, but they're not the worst. You look, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19th. 19th. That's not as bad as what I think some people may have, pegged the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be at. They're better than the Rams, better than Atlanta, which, by the way, they're already above Atlanta in the division race right now. Better than a few other teams that are down here. Right now, you could maybe say they're, maybe the right in the middle, so to speak, or below average, right? Obviously being at 19th. But still, not the worst, right? And I feel like that is important. I feel like that is interesting. The Saints are above them at plus 6,000. So there is a big difference there, but you could start to see these numbers change, right? If the Buccaneers win versus the 49ers, New Orleans kind of continues their skid of being an up and down type of team. Tampa Bay has a very favorable schedule, which does definitely make them a dark horse, in my opinion. And we'll take a look at their schedule in a little bit, but that is an interesting thing to note there, is the Tampa Bay is 19th now in terms of odds to, be in that Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl, so to speak. So definitely not the worst. The AFC playoff picture is right here next. We don't really got to talk about that. We go next to the NFC playoff picture, which is a very interesting situation. Definitely worth noting and taking a look at. You look at the division leaders. Philadelphia is number 1. They're 8-1. They're a fantastic football team. Detroit is number 2 at 7-2. San Francisco's at number 3 at 6-3. And then you get New Orleans here at number 4, the most vulnerable of the division leaders at a 5-5 record. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers already have a win over New Orleans this year. Interesting thing to make a note of there. In terms of the wild card race, right now as it stands, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 4th. There's going to be, I believe, there is 3 wild card teams that do make it. Right now you have Seattle, you have Dallas, and you have Minnesota. Tampa Bay is technically, I think they're a game and a half back because they have defeated Minnesota this year, which would help with any tiebreakers. Essentially, the teams that are above the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now in the playoff races, the Bucs have beaten. They beat Minnesota. They beat New Orleans. They haven't played Seattle, Dallas. They lost to Detroit, but that is what it is. They lost to Philadelphia. That is what it is. In terms of the Buccaneers' path to the playoffs, they've beaten the teams that they have needed to beat this year, which I think is very interesting, which I think is very helpful in terms of the Buccaneers playoff race. And even right now, right, they're still 4th. Like Atlanta's still below them. Washington's still below them. You take a look here. The NFC is becoming easier to figure out by the week. The Vikings have a 1.5 game advantage on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 8th and can move to 7 wins against the Broncos next Sunday night. That is what it is. Let's take a look here, right? Tampa Bay faces a gauntlet of 4 road games in the next 5. So its playoff candidacy may go south like those of the Washington Commanders and the Atlanta Falcons. The Saints can use that window of games to break away in the NFC South. Dennis Allen's team plays 3 of 4 contests at home after its week 11 bye. The lone road trip is in Atlanta. A win over the Falcons in week 12 would make the Saints the overwhelming favorite in the NFC South. I tend to disagree with that a little bit because yes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do have a gauntlet of 4 road games in their next 5, right? But you do got to remember that the Bucs have beaten the Saints this year. That does matter in the overall hierarchy of the NFC South. We'll take a look at the Buccaneers schedule here in just a moment. But yeah, this is still a very close race to the NFC South. Yes, obviously, the next few weeks are going to be very important to this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, to this overall NFC South standing situation, but it is definitely not as in favor of the Saints as some may believe, right? And I really do agree with that. And let's take a look at that schedule now. Let's kind of break that down a little bit more to get a better understanding of what the Buccaneers are going to be dealing with moving forward with their schedule, right? So as we take a look at here, this 4-game streak of losses that they had was not a helpful situation, man. It was not a good situation to be in. You had 2 very winnable games versus the Falcons and the Texans. If the Bucs won those games, they would easily be in the driver's seat for the NFC South right now. easily. Didn't happen. They lost. But again, one important thing to note here is that they do have that win against the Saints in week 4. That certainly does matter. But let's take a look at those next few games, right? To kind of break away from that win streak, kind of look at where things are right now. The Buccaneers are second in the NFC South. Right now, the Falcons are third. And taking a look at these next few games, their next 5, let's say, right, before you play the Saints at home on New Year's Eve. You firstly have the San Francisco 49ers away. That's a tough game. I will agree with that. That is absolutely going to be a tough game to play for this Bucs team. And that should have some playoff implications, as if they lose, they drop to third at a 4-6 record. The Falcons have a tiebreaker over them, but they'd still only be 1 game back in that situation, right? After that, you have the Indianapolis Colts, a team that is no longer with their star quarterback in Anthony Richardson, a team that currently has a 5-5 record, right? Their offense is 9th for points for, or their team is 9th in points for in the entirety of the NFL. And they did just have a very gutsy win, a very gutsy win against the New England Patriots, and they did defeat the Carolina Panthers. However, this is still a winnable game for the Bucs, all things considered, in my opinion. So is it on the road? Yes. Is it an impossibly tough game? It is a winnable game. I will say that. You then have the Carolina Panthers, which they're not a great team this year. They are currently 1-8. And yes, it is away, it's at home. It's a very winnable game for the Bucs. It is at home. You then play the Atlanta Falcons, who, yes, you did lose against them, but I feel like there was a lot of things that they learned from that game. That was a winnable game. And yes, they did lose to them earlier in the year. And that was a very, very unfortunate loss in week number 7. But you only lost by 3 points in a game that you should have won. If you clean some things up and showcase that you're a different team than what you saw in that week 7 loss, you can win that game. And then finally you have the Green Bay Packers, who right now as it stands, they are 3-6, struggling with Jordan Love under center, struggling overall with injuries and whatnot. That is also a game that you could possibly see this Buccaneers team win. Okay. So point being, to go back to the article, to say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers face a gauntlet, right? It's a gauntlet. It's a little strong, in my opinion, to say that that's a gauntlet. You're playing a team that's at 5. You're playing, yes, the San Francisco 49ers are a tough team. After that, you play a team that's 500 ball, and then you play 3 teams in a row that all have losing records. Yes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a losing record themselves, but if they want to set themselves apart from these teams, you beat those teams with losing records. So it's interesting. Cosmic McAllis says, if we even sniff the playoffs, then that would already be a better outcome for this year than I initially thought. Trouble says, we may shock some people if our defense can build on yesterday. I agree with both of those things. An important thing to note as well is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were 4-5 last year in the same exact situation. Now, obviously, some things were different. Tom Brady was at quarterback as opposed to Baker Mayfield, but Baker Mayfield's been actually playing pretty decent this year, all things considered, and you have some more winnable games here, right? After that, you play the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a tough game. And you finish off against the Saints and the Panthers. These blocks of games, these 6 games I have highlighted here, right? If the Buccaneers win 4 out of these 6 games, all very winnable games, you're looking at an 8-9 record right there, right? They win 5, they're at 9-8. Right? With a winning record, that can be something that can win you that division. If you win all 6, you're looking at 10-7. You should be winning the division at that point. The Jaguars and 49ers games, those are very tough games to win. It is what it is at that point, right? But these 6 games that we're looking at here are so important, right? These are going to be the games that decide whether or not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make the playoffs or not. These 6 games. All the teams that I have highlighted right now, folks, either have a 500 record or have a losing record. The Buccaneers can really set themselves apart from the mediocrity and set themselves apart. Yes, they are absolutely a dark horse. I believe that. I really do. And to take a look at these stats to support my point, we're seeing good things from this team, right? We're not just seeing disappointing things. Baker Mayfield, 2,143 passing yards so far this year, 14 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. If I told you guys that Baker Mayfield was playing this way at around the midway point, would you guys believe me? I think the answer would probably be no. A lot of people assumed that the Bucs were going to be bad this year. A lot of people assumed that Baker Mayfield was going to be bad this year. Did they let some games slip through their fingers? Yes, absolutely. But we've been seeing some good things from Baker this year. That's the first thing that is going to help them. The second thing that's going to help them is that we're finally seeing Rachaad White really come into his own as a running back, as a receiver so far this year. You take a look, 132 yards, 132 attempts, 429 yards, 3.3 yards per attempt is not great, right? It's not great. I'll admit that 100%. But you take a look at this, 35 receptions, that is the second most for running backs in the league this year. 326 receiving yards, that is second for most in running backs this year, behind Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. Rachaad White's been seeing some success. He has. He's fourth in the team in targets this year. You take a look at the other two main guys there, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They're playing fantastic this year. Godwin at 522 yards, Evans at 737 and 6 touchdowns. Evans is having a pretty much a banner year so far. These are your top 3 guys that are supporting Baker Mayfield. Is Rachaad White, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin, which is helping this offense, if you notice, slowly start to build up and slowly start to regain some form, right? You take a look at the Buffalo Bills game. They dropped 18. That was a tough game. You drop 37 against the Houston Texans, and then you get 20 points, which should have been more. Should have honestly been 24 points, 27 points, honestly. Possibly even more than that because of what the defense dropped 4 interceptions yesterday versus Will Levis. Point being is that this offense seems to be forming into its own now. It seems like they're starting to come into more of a rhythm. They should be 5-4 right now because they should have beaten the Houston Texans, but CJ Stroud's a very good quarterback. And that is going to be one thing that's going to help against some of these other teams, is that their offense is starting to play better, starting to gel more, and you're starting to see some more success there. On the defensive side of things, yes, they had a very terrible game versus the Houston Texans. I would say that they single-handedly lost that game versus not single-handedly. They lost that game versus the Houston Texans, though. Let CJ Stroud drive right down the field, and that was what it was. But against the Titans, we saw a rebound. We saw them only hold the Titans to 6 points. We saw them contain Derrick Henry. We saw the defense that held a explosive offense like the Philadelphia Eagles to 25 points, helped get wins against the Bears and Vikings by holding them to 17 apiece, only hold a very powerful Detroit Lions offense to 20 points, hold an Atlanta Falcons offense to 16 points, the Bills to 24. Like, we saw a good defensive performance in week number 10, which is more so the case of what we've seen in the past. And that's also going to be an important factor here in these 6 important games moving forward for playoff contention, for NFC South, winning contention, right? Take a look at the defensive side of things. Let's go to it real quick if I can find it. Go to the kicking, go to the punting, all these different types of things, all these different guys that you're seeing come up big. Firstly, you have Vita Vea still going out there, still making some plays. Shaq Barrett has made some plays of his own as well. Antoine Winfield Jr. has been probably the best player on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense this year. He, at least according to head coach Todd Bowles, is forming more of a role of defensive leadership. Levante David has been in there as well. Devin White has been in there as well with Vita Vea as this defensive nucleus, this defensive leadership that has really been able to show the way and help this team in a huge way. Another guy that helps out a lot, who's only played in 6 games and has gotten 2 sacks and 7 quarterback hits, as well as 6 tackles for loss, is Kalijah Kancey. I mean, this has been a guy who has been exploding onto the scene since he has been healthy. He's going to be helping out down the stretch as well. If you see this pass rush improve, if you see the overall leadership continue to take control, you're going to see a different defense, and you're going to see a team that is going to fight and be in those winnable games. Jerry says defense and offense need to complement each other. They did a great job last weekend, and just continue the total team approach. That is what we are talking about here, right? That is why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a dark horse. You've seen snippets of it in the past, right? You've seen the defense keep the Buccaneers in games, but the offense couldn't get it done. You've seen the offense really do enough to win the game, but the defense couldn't get it done, right? You've seen one unit do good, and then the other not do good, then the reverse happens. What we saw from the Titans game, much like what we saw in the New Orleans Saints game, was a complete team win, which is so, so important because that is going to be a big deciding factor into whether or not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can compete for the NFC South. Why they are a dark horse in this NFC playoff race, because whenever you do go up against a team that should be a winnable game, like it was against the Tennessee Titans, you play complete football and you get a win, right? That's what it boils down to. They win 4 out of these games, 4 out of these 6. And yes, they could beat the San Francisco 49ers. They could beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm just saying that they, these 6 games are important, are so, so important. You win a majority of them, you're in contention for a playoff spot. You're in contention to win that NFC South, man. It's huge. It's huge. But folks, that's it for why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a contender in the NFC South. Obviously, they're still in contention. That's why they are a dark horse in the NFC South. You have the defense that we've seen proof can do good things and win you some football games and play complete football. We've seen the offense show evidence of being able to play winning, complementary football and be a winning offense, right? And we see the schedule as a schedule where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 6 out of their last 8 games, they're playing a team with either a 500 record or a losing record. All of this equates to there is a chance for the Buccaneers to be a team that can make some noise, can win a wild card spot or win the NFC South. Even the betting favorites, they're 19th right now. The Falcons are below them. The Saints are a few spots above them, but all of that can change and change very quickly depending on how the second half of this season goes. And right now, there are a good amount of things that are in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' favor, from the evidence that we've seen from the team to the schedule that they have moving forward. So we'll just have to wait and see, folks. Guys, let me know your thoughts and opinions about this. I would love to hear it. Thank you so much to everybody who participated in the chat. Thank you to everybody from Bleacher Report who lets me come on here and talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It is so, so much fun to bring up. Do you guys think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a dark horse in the NFC playoff race? Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I would love to hear them. Again, guys, make sure you check out Bleacher Report for all things, not just Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, all things sports you're going to find here on the Bleacher Report app, on BleacherReport.com as well. It is a great place to go. I love going here and just checking out everything, not just with my team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but just a lot of other sports as well. But guys, thank you so much for watching this live stream. Hope you all enjoyed. As always, folks, I will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now. See you guys soon, and go Bucs.